Narrative is one of the most important parts of entertainment, and yet people are getting paid to intentionally destroy it. And they're proud of it.
I wrote about myself a lot, and I would put myself into a lot of art, into a lot of narratives, and I put my family and people who look like me in all these cool scenarios, and I was telling all these stories where I got to see myself, I got to see people who look like me, and kind of a rainbow of people who were kind of adjacent to me.
Now, I've covered sensitivity readers before, back when they were destroying 007. Why do you think sensitivity reading has become more popular? The demand is definitely growing and becoming more mainstream. People just don't want to publish something and then find themselves in a Twitter storm. This is an entire industry driven by fear, and they know it. In fact, that's how they get their jobs.
Go have a coffee with your marketing team and just terrify them with the possibility of what's going to happen if they don't give you what you want.
That's the co-founder of Sweet Baby Inc. giving instructions on how other people in the audience can imitate her business.
With keeping the sentiment around their game and their project positive, there's like a genuine value that you can impress upon them, both ethically and financially.
She said earlier that I know that all of you at this panel already agree with me, but we've got to take it out of just advocacy and move it into the mainstream.
If we start having these conversations as facets of narrative, as facets of marketing, as gameplay, as art, you can go out into the world now and other people will hear it from you.
She had various tactics that she used to do it, that she wanted to teach them, so that they could also manipulate their employers into destroying their own companies.
Kind of outline the tools and the techniques that I use and that my company has used to make representation very much a staple of our offering.
The entire thing is essentially blackmail.
That's gaslighting. That's what it is. Like this, we're the victims. Feel bad for us. That's what that is.
You should employ me so I can tell you what people like me will get offended by on Twitter. And if you don't employ me, well, they're gonna kick up a right stink and give you a load of bad press. None of this is about what the customer wants, what the majority of the customer base wants. And she knows that.
Why are we still being told, oh no, that's not what players want?
She even said at the start that the companies were telling her, this is what our audience wants. They knew what the audience wanted.
When people like us get told, you know, from higher ups or from society at large, this isn't what players want, it's not a conversation about content. It's a conversation about demographics.
They were doing it, and yet over time, she managed to work in things that she wanted, rather than what the audience did.
We feed them the same thing that we know that they love, and we keep on feeding it. We're like, here you go, you love it, eat this, eat this, eat this.
Sounds great, doesn't it? We know what they want, and we keep giving it to them over and over and over again. It's the perfect business model, except to her, it's a negative.
So that then when they get anything else, they react as a picky baby would, which is be like, oh no, thank you. I do not want this.
Yeah, if you keep giving somebody quality content, they become picky babies. They develop such horrible things like standards. They won't accept the trash that I want to feed them as an artist.
And they make us scared to deviate from what we actually want to do, just in case these picky babies don't want to play our games.
The audience's desires for quality really gets in the way of me giving them what I want to feed them.
How about this character's kind of like stereotypically French? And I was like, okay, if you need to do that, can we at least make them a person of color?
Because it doesn't matter if they want it. They need it.
Do have like a lot of power to actually affect the change that we want to see and to work all of these concepts in our material as narrative developers.
Because she seems to think it's her duty, even talking about how much pain she was in.
Because what I've said so far is already familiar, already painful, and I want to kind of assume that you have sat with that.
I mean, yes, I was in pain, but it's mainly because I had to listen to you. I had to start eating ice lollies so my brain didn't liquefy and fall out my nose.
Here we had the chance to make a woman who has been victimized see herself in a game, be able to express something to another woman in a game, and kind of actually relate to it.
Yes, we're going to make a game for a tiny fraction of the audience and then take that fraction and split it into an infinitesimal fraction that could actually apply to and think that that's going to make us profitable. I mean, we could make games for the blokes, but that would be deeply uninteresting.
Deeply uninteresting idea that in terms of narratives and stories, white and male are, neutral and universal. Don't fall into this trap that we can include everyone by making this like single default universal experience that is universally representative. All that means is that you're aiming at your core demographic and you're probably invisibly leaning towards the dominant societal voice.
Also, her whole thing about victimization, she does that a lot.
Here we had the chance to make a woman who has been victimized.
Games are meant to be fun, they're meant to be escape, and yet her story ideas would have people walking off a bridge.
We're going to share our stories of microaggressions, which I am going to do today, but we share stories of trauma and of doubt.
If you can't see yourself in the game, then painful for some reason. It doesn't matter about the majority of the audience, though. No.
I think we need to step out of this rule that like white men can enjoy fantasy worlds, aliens, sci-fi, monsters, anything, so long as it's through a lens that looks exactly like them.
In fact, throughout this entire speech, she basically holds every single possible position that you can hold and argues from every side. Like, on the one hand, it's incredibly important that certain people are represented in the story.
Firstly, I would say do not be afraid to create moments that are intentionally targeted and designed to create joy in the marginalized. To think about times when you have felt seen and representative and share them as loudly as you possibly can. Be loud about it. Don't be afraid to ask for more of this and what you've felt and seen already.
But them getting represented doesn't exclude them from the majority of the audience.
And that if we bring joy to our broad audience, it's going to encompass our core audience as well.
No, because obviously people can put themselves into other people's shoes, and so representation isn't important, as long as you're doing it for this group.
We're going to set out to create a moment of joy in people who look like this, people who feel represented by this.
Don't represent the majority, though, because if you do that, then people are in pain.
I think we need to step out of this rule that like white men can enjoy fantasy worlds, aliens, sci-fi, monsters, anything, so long as it's through a lens that looks exactly like them. That when we look at white guys, I think that when we look at you, we say, okay, you can't possibly enjoy this. We cater them the way that we cater to like a picky baby. As like a woman of color, I have played with and like empathized with a lot of white men.
She has absolutely no problem holding two entirely contradictory points of view in her head at the same time. I can only assume because it gets her what she wants.
Because if that's the kind of person that we're always going to cater to, you're never going to innovate. You're never going to change things. You're just going to keep feeding the picky baby. And we cannot continue to try to create art under a system that is going to bar innovation for fear of a picky baby throwing a tantrum.
And yes, this company is in the gaming sphere, but what they're doing is the same for all entertainment. We've seen these companies come for books, and I'm sure these companies exist in Hollywood as well, although it's probably less needed in there because you're dealing with massive corporations who have decided to destroy their own work in-house, whether voluntarily for things like Disney or for other movies because things like the Oscars impose it on them. But the interesting thing about Sweet Baby is how open and honest they are about their aims, their goals, what they see as important, and the manipulative subversion tactics that they use to get their own way.
And for those of you who kind of represent that dominant voice, I want to invite you to be brave and to be empathetic and to open yourselves and your teams to the voices that you haven't heard enough. Go have a coffee with your marketing team and just terrify them. Inclusion and representation are tools for creation and will shape the final product.
Exactly how do you go to a gaming company that is making a quality product that they know the audience wants and go, no, you need to do what I say and go bankrupt because I've told you to. And that's why Sweet Baby Inc. is at the moment just in the middle of the hornet's nest, to the point where the corporate press are coming out desperately diving in front of them to stop the drama. Oh, they don't do what you think it does. Yeah, they do.
Kim Belair can enjoy fantasy worlds so long as it's through a lens that looks exactly like them.
We have video evidence of them admitting it in their own words in a speech to other people that they're telling to go out and do the same thing.
A lot of the work that I do is in narrative consultation and narrative design, and one of the things that I offer as part of my list of services is risk assessment and sensitivity reading.
We know what they do because they told us about it. They were proud of it. Right up until people found out they were doing it anyway. Then they desperately tried to get people tracking them taken down. Because sunlight really is the best disinfectant. The aims, the tactics, their goals all rely on doing it in secret. They're trying to drum up a climate of fear. Oh, the Twitter people will come after you. But what they don't want you to find out is that the Twitter drama is themselves. It's a tiny fraction of lunatics that nobody else cares about. The aim is to make them sound big and scary, but they want to keep that drama kind of contained as like a dark shadow, a possibility. They don't want it to become mainstream news because then the companies, actually the majority, despises them. And don't come back. The majority of their audience doesn't like this. And as ever, you should make a product for the majority of your audience, because that's what makes you the most money. And if you're pissing off a tiny number of people in order to please the majority of people, well, that's just good business. And yes, Sweet Baby Inc. isn't the only company doing this, but it's not really the point. It really is about the message. It's about the principle. It doesn't matter who's doing it. It matters that it's happening. That's why it's rather strange some of the opinions that have come out during this. When the Ackman came out and criticized Az over Starfield, he thought it was strange that someone would react to the effect that this is having on the industry. But when Sweet Baby Inc. kicked off, he started to look into it. It's like, what, a narrative consultancy group? Why would you hire them when that's what writers are for? And when he found out what it was for, essentially, I think I just threw up in my mouth. It seems like a strange position to have because narrative consultancy isn't unusual. We had George R.R. Martin help with the Elden Ring background, and Brandon Sanderson helped write the background with Moonbreaker. These are writers that don't really have anything to do with the gaming industry. They're just brought in to work on a particular project and then leave again. That's what Sweet Baby is doing. The problem isn't the fact that you're hiring a third party to do it. The problem is the principle. It's their intention. It's the effect and impact they're having on the finished work.
Because I think if we prioritize joy and start to frame representation as, a new form of innovation, rather than as pain avoidance and like surface level diversity, we're going to actually start to win a few more battles.
Which is why, yes, they may not have been involved in Starfield, but does it matter? The effect is the same. The impact on Starfield was the same. It doesn't matter whether this company did it, or another company did, or people in the offices at the company did it. What matters is the effect. It's the ideology and the values which cause these things to be put into stuff in the first place. As there is no beneficial impact. This is a rot at the core of entertainment. I don't care if the person who pissed in my food is the head chef or a third-party contractor. What are you doing pissing in my food?
Are you taking the piss?
Well, I mean, we know why. These are incredibly proud people. They will just tell you.
Hey, is this very racist thing we did very racist? Or is this deeply offensive thing we did deeply offensive? Are you hurt by it?
That's why it's rather insane that people like Paul Tassi are coming out and going, this will wake the hive, but the whole panic is truly the dumbest thing I have seen. Yes, one of the great traditional tactics of shame and humiliation in order to silence somebody. Unfortunately, once again, defeated by the iron law. You can't take the moral high ground when you don't have any morals. And you can't shame people who already think you're beneath them, as the only thing you have to do to realize it's not dumb is listen to what they're saying. The Kotaku article desperately trying to gaslight for them. Oh, it just doesn't do what you think it does. No, they're not forcing things into your video games. That's weird, because in their own words, we have this.
Do have like a lot of power to actually affect the change that we want to see and to work all of these concepts in our material as narrative developers. To create moments that are intentionally targeted and designed to create joy in the marginalized.
Whoops, or how they expose their intentions when they say they infiltrated a Discord group. By which they mean joined. It was public, anyone could join. It wasn't infiltration. You're not 007 after Sweet Baby Inc. chopped his bits off. It's no more secret than being on Twitter, love. And I would show you that she described joining this Discord as infiltration. Except, yeah, she's not protected the tweets. When you realise you've messed up, go private so you can try and clean your history. A bit too honest, love, weren't you? That's why when your messages on the Discord, it was like, oh, do you want to chat on the Discord or the Steam page? Let me know. Is there any reason why you don't have your individual names and pictures associated to your accounts? Immediately trying to track people down in real life. Is there any reason that you need that information? What do you have to gain from it to track them down in real life? What were your intentions? Oh, look, here we are. Here's an old tab that I haven't refreshed so we can still see the message. I spoke to the team at Sweet Baby and infiltrated the Discord group. And luckily, Endymion actually captured her other post, where she turned out to be massive racist. Yeah, apparently you can't discriminate against Europeans. That would explain why she sided with the CEO.
We still look at our core demographics and say, okay, they're white, cis, hetero males. And we cater almost exclusively to them. We cater them the way that we cater to like a picky baby.
I mean, seriously. It would be more funny if it wasn't so predictable. Whenever this happens, you already know where it's going. And she did get community noted for it, but protected, or with perhaps the best description, victim mode engaged. It's all such a massive lie. They literally just go around gaslighting people. They'd love to pin all of the problems in their lives on just one group over here. But the problem is, nobody likes it. That's why this story has gone international. Even in Japan, it has got picked up and being retweeted now over the absolutely horrific twaddle which they were talking in their game developers conference.
Holy moly. Representation is cool.
This is a consulting company that's making waves overseas. Founded in 2018, many large companies as clients. Japanese companies are also on the list. It may be a good idea to remember their name, as their name is like tying an anchor to yourself and going swimming. At this point, that company is like the Grim Reaper of video games. If people see their name attached to your company, your game will go bankrupt in 7 days. And that's why the furore around this company, even when it's in gaming, is important. Because the lessons that are learned here apply to everything in gaming, books, and television. We see the same ideology everywhere. Columbia Records is getting sued for the same problem. It's not the company, it's the principle. It's what they stand for and the inherent problems they bring to the industry. It was particularly interesting to me when they basically proved something I've been saying for a while. It's not enough to just go, I want good stories. Because to them, good stories means something entirely different. To them, box box ticking is the story. That's what makes the story good. So when Echo comes out and advertises their story based around all the boxes they've ticked,
I think the thing I'm most excited for you guys to see is Choctaw community, a Choctaw culture, and all of the ASL.
I think so many people feel like this project might be checking boxes in some way.
to them, that's like Mauler doing a 5-hour breakdown about what he loved about a movie.
If you're in communications or you're part of that like scared marketing group, treat representation as a facet of innovation, as a selling point. Because none of what we're doing is about ticking boxes or about a veneer of wokeness. We actually have to care about making this stuff and start to frame representation as, you know, a new form of innovation. Inclusion and representation are tools for creation and will shape the final product. That sucks. And it's such a bummer.
It's not that they're lying, it's that they value something different to the majority of the audience. This is why it's not enough to go, I just want things to be neutral, because they don't. Just want a good story opens the door for them to come along and start telling the companies what makes a good story. There should be a counterbalance, an alternative perspective. There should be a group of people going, no, this is what makes a good story. It is these values, not those values, that should be in, because these appeal to the majority of people. These will be profitable.
Go have a coffee with your marketing team and just terrify them.
Heroism, masculinity, challenge, sacrifice, damsels in distress, femininity, traditional storytelling that embody the values of the traditional mainstream audience. Classic stories that have lasted for literally thousands of years. These all get written off as tropes or stereotypes. Oh god, she has a problem with stereotypes.
Characters kind of like stereotypically French. So they have a beret and they have like a striped shirt. And I was like, okay.
Although I have to say, I do love the developer's response.
If you need to do that, can we at least make them a person of color? And they said, oh no, that would be weird. They're already French.
He's already French. Don't you think the gamers have enough to deal with? Because that is what the entertainment industry needs. They've been fed and gaslit this false perception of the world, getting lied to. They have a tiny group of people exploiting the fact that most people are good to get their own way, to get their values and beliefs into something.
Terrify them with the possibility of what's going to happen if they don't give you what you want.
To drive the entire industry off a cliff just because they like it. What there needs to be is an alternate perspective. A better one. One that isn't neutral, but it pushes for positive change. To actually get good entertainment back on the screen with good values in it. As people have been threatening developers or the movie industry for years. And the audience is fed up of being fed trash. Fear and intimidation don't work when people realize you're meaningless. And quite frankly, a corporation should be more afraid of its customer base than it is a few fringe lunatics who are desperate to get offended by everything just to try and leverage it into more money. As if the industry wants to survive, it has to change. Actors are struggling to find jobs as everything contracts because the money has run out. And people can try and spin this as some big lie that we were just pumping out too much content. And if we lower the amount of content, then it'll be really good. We were just spread too thin. Yeah, it had nothing to do with the values within the entertainment or the people working on it, no. We just had too many talented people working on too many things. Well, they certainly don't have that problem anymore after the strikes took the industry to its knees. And the IATSE are still pissing about saying they're gonna do it again. Put your helmets on. We're gonna strike. Yeah, they had a solidarity rally. F around and find out. Well, I mean, they would strike if there was anything to strike for. I'm not even exaggerating. The town's canaries in the gold mine. An anemic state of production. We'll strike if we have to, but in the aftermath of the previous strikes in 2023, there doesn't seem to be much work to halt in the first place. If you don't pay us more, we'll burn it down as soon as we find something left standing. This is an industry that doesn't have the money left to pander to evil in the first place.
It's afraid. It's afraid!
It doesn't matter if they hate the majority of their audience, you're gonna have to start making content for them. And the problem is you've filled your staff with people just like those of Sweet Baby in the first place. And those people can't make good content. They can't turn it around because the problem is with the principle. The problem is with the idea and the ideology itself. It's not the company, it's the belief system of the people. And the only way you're going to change that is by changing the people. That's why it's pretty astonishing that these are even gonna say they're gonna go on strike. Because when you find out the damage that the first strike did, so many projects were cancelled, so many bad deals laid off. It's not back to how it was in the first place. The series are either already greenlit or was in the middle of production when the strike happened. There is no new stuff happening. This whole situation has changed my life. I went from having a 3-bedroom, 2-bath with a pool to a condo in Canoga Park. People's health has been attacked. Major anxiety, stress, depression. We're all sitting here going, we don't deserve this. We weren't even on strike. Except they don't have a choice because their union is still going, well, you know, we might go on strike again. Yeah, we know the previous strikes destroyed your life, but, you know, we don't care about that. We'll do it again. These are the people that Hollywood has courted. And you expect the people that would cause these problems without blinking an eye to be able to turn around and write a story about a hero, morals, self-sacrifice to save other people.
As they decide whether to share or to shaft.
These are the same people that can't even get into a story unless the person actually looks like them. And you think they'd be able to imagine what it's like to be a moral hero who actually cares about someone other than themselves? Right. I think that just might be a suspension of disbelief too far. Even Dakota Johnson has come out around Madam Web and talk about how there's too many people writing the stories. You can't make art based on numbers and algorithms. You can't be creative by committee, where everyone's getting their own little 2 pence in. You know, you'll have a main guy write the story, and then everybody else comes in to consult and goes, can you just change this? That's offensive. We need to change those. Can we get that guy out of a wheelchair, please? Because Russell T Davies thinks he's evil.
I had problems with that, and a lot of us on the production team had the problems with that, of associating disability with evil.
You might have had a good story originally, till everyone else got involved, and it's death by 1,000 cuts, as the best stories pass on a message. There's meant to be some kind of moral lesson in them. It's a worldview, but a worldview has to be cohesive. All the values in it have to make sense. And so if you have 1,000 people all sticking their oar in, and then nothing's going to make sense. And this is Hollywood. A lot of them are going to have values that repulse the audience.
And we cannot continue to try to create art under a system that is going to bar innovation for fear of a picky baby throwing a tantrum.
Just like Kotaku, or Sweet Baby itself. And it doesn't matter where these people come from. It doesn't matter if the people sticking their oar in are from external to the company or internal. The problem is that they're doing it in the first place. The creator needs a vision for the product that they're creating, and it needs to be a better vision than the ones we get now. Robert Meyer Burnett was saying the people who work in Hollywood studios at the highest levels of the industry know less about the entertainment industry than ever before in all of history, because they weren't hired for their skill, talent, business acumen. It was never about merit. It's hired because you know the right person, tick the right boxes, or were slimy enough to know who to get on side. People love to overcomplicate things. They want a grey area that they can weasel around in because it makes them feel better. Most things really are black and white. Reality exists and there's a best way of doing things. Whether we know what that is or not, it does exist. What you should be striving for. If you want your company to be the best it can be, it needs the best people, regardless of anything else. And one thing we can say for sure are that tick boxes aren't quality. They don't improve anything. And when you've got snake oil salesmen like Baby Inc. telling you there are, or actors coming out just preaching that, you know, we need more roles for people who look like me, because that'll increase my bank balance, you know you can ignore them. Preferably, should laugh at them. To make sure that they learn, we don't do that around here. We can't even afford to do that around here. But most of all, we can't have our audience think that's how we do things, because we're scared of them leaving, just like they did before. It's time that Hollywood, the gaming industry, and every company ask themselves a question. What are you more afraid of? Going bankrupt because the audience hates what you're putting out as you ruined it? Or are you scared of 5 people on Twitter and their journalist friends who'll make up a story and try and make you look bad because they're morally bankrupt themselves? I still think that Elon said it best.
What I care about is the reality of goodness, not the perception of it.
Because it should be an easy choice for any company. You can make profit and have an audience that knows you do good. Or you can do evil and have journalists on your side as you go bankrupt. For a long time, the meme has been, which way Western man? But I think it's time to ask companies the same thing. And I'd decide fast, because the audience has had enough, and your account balances aren't looking too sharp nowadays. Are they, Bob?
Hey, Bob, if you're in the audience, go f*** yourself.
But those are just my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know down in the comments below. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe more videos like this in the future, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.